Have you ever felt like you're just a tiny cog in some giant, uncaring machine? Like what you do doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things? Well, today, we're going to flip that script. This is all about the incredible power we find when we stop seeing ourselves as just isolated individuals and start acting like a real, connected community. Let's dive into how we go from being a single, lonely part to a powerful, unstoppable force. The philosopher Erich Fromm, man, he really hit on something huge here. The deepest kind of suffering for a lot of us isn't just about not having enough money. It's about feeling like our lives lack meaning, lacks connection. This exact feeling of being just a cog, totally replaceable, that's the starting point. It's where the seeds of greed and control really start to take root. It all starts with that feeling of being powerless. So, this slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the isolated person, feeling small, feeling powerless. And on the other, a connected group, all working together with a real sense of purpose. And let me tell you, the journey from one side to the other, it's not just about feeling a little better. It's about building the ultimate defense against the very forces that prey on that loneliness to begin with. All right, so to really get the solution, we first have to understand the problem. And I want you to think of it kind of like a glitch, a bug in our society's code. It's a vulnerability that, well, it makes people wide open to manipulation. That is the million-dollar question, right? And the answer isn't about some kind of personal weakness. No, it's about a systemic pressure, something that behavioral economists have been studying for a while. It's like a tax, but it's not on your money. It's a tax on your mind. And here it is. This is the key, the mental bandwidth tax. See, when you're constantly stressed about making rent or putting food on the table, your brain is just burning through energy to survive today. And that leaves way less cognitive horsepower or bandwidth for thinking about the future, for solving complex problems, or even just participating in your community. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. It's about having your brain's processing power totally hijacked by stress. And wow, the economist Eldar Shafir just captures the brutal reality of this perfectly. When you have zero safety net, absolutely no room for error, that constant pressure makes mistakes pretty much inevitable. This isn't a personal failing. It's a feature of living in scarcity. It's a trap. And what's really fascinating and scary is how this mental tax creates this domino effect. It can lead to what experts call a dangerous worldview, where everything and everyone starts to feel like a threat. So people start looking backward, searching for safety in some imaginary, perfect past, instead of trying to build a better future. And this right here is the exact environment where it becomes super easy to start blaming entire groups of people for really complex problems, which makes folks incredibly vulnerable to authoritarian leaders who show up with easy answers. Okay, so if economic stress is the glitch, what's the patch? What's the antidote that can fix this vulnerability? Well, the answer is simple, it's powerful, and it's available to every single one of us. It's community. Let's just sit with that for a second. Community isn't just a nice to have. It is the non-negotiable antidote. I mean, research into historical resistance movements everywhere from Mussolini's Italy to apartheid South Africa shows the same thing over and over. The people who had community structures, things like student groups, churches, even secret reading circles, those were the ones who could hold on to hope and actually resist. Now, the fancy academic term for this community power is social capital. But I want you to think of it like the invisible code that makes a community actually work. It's the trust you have in your neighbors. It's the shared understanding of how to get things done. It's the networks you can actually rely on when things get tough. And this table breaks it down brilliantly. See, not all social capital is the same. First, you've got bonding capital. That's your ride or die crew, your family, your best friends, the people who have your back no matter what. Then there's bridging capital. This is all about connecting with people who aren't like you. And this is so important because it stops us from getting stuck in our own little bubbles and falling for that us versus them trap. And finally, you have linking capital. This connects you to people in power, which is how you get access to resources and, hold leaders accountable. A truly resilient community, it needs all three. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but what does building this kind of community power actually look like? Let's check out how this upgrade works out in the real world. We're going to look at two concrete examples that are happening right now. Really powerful tools that communities are using to fight back against insecurity and greed. First up, mutual aid. Now, this is not charity. Charity can sometimes create this weird power dynamic, right? A giver and a receiver. Mutual aid is about solidarity. It's about people working together to meet each other's needs. The whole point is to turn everyone from a recipient into a participant. It builds real relationships and community power while solving immediate problems, like, getting groceries for a neighbor who's sick or setting up a place for people to cool off during a heat wave. Okay, fine. But what about the bigger, more systemic stuff? I mean, how can a community possibly stand up to something as massive and profit-driven as the housing market, where speculation can literally price people out of their own neighborhoods? This is where a truly brilliant model called a community land trust, or CLT, comes in. And the core idea is simple but revolutionary. A nonprofit that represents the community. It owns the land itself. An individual or a family then buys just the house that sits on that land. By splitting the ownership of the house from the land, you basically take real estate speculation completely out of the equation. The land can't be flipped for a massive profit. So here's the breakdown. Step 1, the nonprofit trust buys the land and holds onto it for the community, forever. Step 2, a family can buy just the house and at a truly affordable price. And step 3, a special lease agreement makes sure that if that family ever sells, they have to sell it at another affordable price to the next family. It's a system designed from the ground up to lock in affordability for generations. So does it work? Let me put it this way. Back during the 2008 housing crisis, when foreclosures were absolutely devastating communities everywhere, homeowners in community land trusts were 30 times less likely to lose their homes. I mean, that is a staggering level of stability built by the community for the community. So we've seen the problem, the vulnerability, and we've seen the powerful solutions that communities are building. So now the focus turns to us. It turns to you. This is it. This is the single most important takeaway from all of this. It's not about finding some perfect leader or the perfect policy. It's about building strong, connected, thriving communities. That is the fundamental antidote. And why does it work? Because it gets right back to that Erich Fromm quote from the very beginning. Strong communities fulfill our basic human needs for belonging, for purpose, for meaning. And when those needs are met, that temptation to escape our powerlessness by submitting to some authoritarian figure, it just fades away. We no longer feel like a cog in a machine. So, we're going to end with this question. Building this kind of world doesn't always have to start with a big protest or a new law. It can start with a meal, a phone call, sharing a story. So think about it. What is one simple act of care you can do this week that weaves one more thread into that social fabric? Because every single one of those threads doesn't just build resilience, it builds our collective power.